So we need. Could we ask all the council?
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, other dignitaries present, Ms. Kagan, those of you watching at home on Channel 11, my fellow citizens of Rockville, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. My name is Alan Frankel, and as president of the Rockville Community Coalition, I welcome you to our debate among the candidates for mayor and candidates for the City Council of the City of Rockville. The Rockville Community Coalition is a nonpartisan, nonprofit entity whose mission is to educate the citizens of Rockville about issues important to our city so as to enable them to more fully participate in the city government. I would like to recognize the following dignitaries who are here with us tonight. First, our Mayor, Phyllis Marcuscio, who is here, and she's not running for anything. Former Councilman Bob Wright, and former Mayor Jim Coyle. I wish to thank the City of Rockville for selecting the Rockville Community Coalition to host one of its 3 televised debates. It's our intention this evening to provide a fair, honest, and open, as well as spirited debate among the candidates to help you determine who you will vote for on November 5th. I'm told that there will be cookies and drinks afterwards in the back, so if you came tonight, you get an extra treat. We are truly honored and privileged to once again have the Honorable Cheryl Kagan serve as this evening's moderator. Cheryl's background includes work in all sectors, private, public, and nonprofit. She is a graduate of Vassar College, and since returning to Montgomery County after graduation, she has championed many worthy causes, including civil liberties, campaign finance, and gun control. Cheryl served 8 years as a delegate to the Maryland House of Delegates. She continued to advance important issues as the first director of the Carl M. Freeman Foundation. Under her guidance, the foundation distributed more than $1 million in grants to deserving nonprofit organizations in the county. Today, she serves as the Director for Community Engagement for the B'nai B'rith Youth Organization, where Cheryl is responsible for community outreach, partnerships, fundraising, and media in the Mid-Atlantic Hub. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you our moderator, Cheryl Kagan.
Thank you very much, and welcome to the very first Mayor and Council debates this evening. We're here at the F. Scott Fitzgerald Theater in Rockville, and if anyone is watching on TV and wants to come on over in time for the cookies and beverages afterwards, come on down. There are probably a few seats available. I want to, before we start, wish all of the candidates the very best of luck. Unfortunately, one of the candidates did not have such good luck, and Beryl Feinberg is in the hospital this evening, and she's doing better, but her husband, Ed, is going to read an opening statement and a closing statement that she has written. She will not be otherwise represented in this debate. So I wanted to let you know that. I wanted to remind you again, please, and request, if you have not yet done so, please silence your cell phones so as not to distract the candidates or the viewers. We are here tonight to learn about the candidates and learn about their visions for our city. So I'm going to ask, everybody's got their own opinions, everybody's got issues they especially care about, but cheering or booing or making noises that distract from the candidates and from a civil debate is not helpful. So I'm really going to ask that you not do that, and feel free to do it at the end and at the very beginning when we announce everybody. So if you could please respect that, I think that would make for a terrific debate. We're going to first have our council candidates, then there'll be a quick change up, and then we'll bring our two candidates for mayor. We encourage you to stay for both, obviously, and they will all be on the ballot in November. So leading off, and there's one more thing I wanted to mention, which is the order. A lot of times it's alphabetical and you go up the line and down the line, and that doesn't always seem fair because some folks never have to go first and some folks are always either first or last. And so I've got my beautiful luxurious cloth bag, and I'm going to be pulling names in random order. We are going to have each person first one time, and then we will be rotating it from there. So I just want to let you know that's the way we're going to do the council debates for tonight. We're going to lead off with opening statements, and we will do that in alphabetical order. And so, again, good luck to the candidates, and we'll lead off representing Beryl Feinberg is her husband, Ed Feinberg.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. I'm Ed Feinberg. As you heard from Cheryl, I am the husband of Beryl Feinberg. Beryl is not here because she's been hospitalized, but she actually has come home, and she's doing much better, and she will be at future debates. Beryl is running for city council for several reasons. First, she believes in balanced growth for Rockville. She is a strong advocate of preserving the historic character of Rockville's neighborhoods while ensuring that new enterprises feel welcomed by the city. She does not believe in no growth or unlimited growth, but she subscribes to the concept of balanced growth. She wants to mobilize the public, private, and nonprofit sectors to meet the needs of all citizens, but especially the needs of the increasing population of senior citizens. And she proposes that there be a single point of contact to assist seniors so that they could modify their homes or do whatever is needed to stay where they live for as long as they possibly can in homes that they've often had for decades. She wants to create an atmosphere of civility and respect among the mayor and the council and the city staff. We are 20-year residents of Rockville. With an MBA from the University of Maryland, Beryl has held increasingly critical management position in the county's Office of Management and Budget, and is currently the Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer in the Department of General Services. As a proud member of Team Rockville, she looks forward to the debates during the next several weeks. In the meantime, you are encouraged to learn more about her at her website, beryl@berylfeinberg.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Next is going to be Councilmember Tom Moore.
Hello. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Cheryl Kagan, for moderating, and thank you to the Rockville Community Coalition for sponsoring this event. I received a taste of the RCC's fierce independence 2 years ago when they promptly expelled me the minute I signed up to run for office. Thank you again for that. I am Councilmember Tom Moore. I'm finishing up my first term on the Rockville City Council. What have I done to earn your vote for another 2 years? I led on responsible budgeting. I was instrumental in crafting 2 budgets that kept city services strong and property tax rates steady. I led the way in preserving and protecting our affordable neighborhoods. When the homes of 236 moderate-income families in Fireside Park were threatened by private developers, I championed the effort to direct the city's housing authority to buy the apartments and keep them affordable. This brought absolutely no change to that neighborhood or the surrounding neighborhoods. It simply protected the families that were already there. I stood up for strong public ethics laws. When others sought to reduce how much we elected officials have to disclose about our finances, I worked successfully at the city and state level to keep our ethics laws strong. I led the way in protecting your privacy. I put a spotlight on how long the government can keep license plate data on people who aren't suspected of doing anything wrong. I led the mayor and council to sharply limit the government's retention of this data. I was unafraid to touch Rockville's political third rail, the APFO. Councilmember John Hall, one of the original authors of the APFO in 2005 and one of its fiercest defenders since then, he and I took a hard look at the APF standards and decided that they needed some changes. The city had been sued repeatedly because some standards were poorly written and inconsistent. And as a result of unwise restrictions in the APFO, we were getting a kind of development in Town Center 2 that did not serve the city's goals very well. We'll be talking a lot about that tonight, I'm sure. We decided to take the bull by the horns and try to fix it. It was arguably unwise to do this right before an election, but we strongly believe that the voters sent us to the council for a full 2 years, and they deserve our effort for every second of that. Again, thank you, and I'm looking forward to this discussion tonight.
Thank you, Tom. Next up is Claire Marcuccio Whitaker.
Yes, I'm Claire Marcuccio Whitaker, and I grew up in Rockville. I actually went to elementary school here, Maryvale and Lone Oak. I don't think it's in existence anymore. The junior high school that was there, and Richard Montgomery. I have a, while I was at Richard Montgomery, I was a majorette. And one of the things there was that, you know, the majorettes led the way to a better Richard Montgomery. Well, I just happen to still have my baton. And I am going to lead Rockville to a better Rockville. That's my goal. I'm committed to moving forward, not backwards. I'm not opposed to growth, but I believe growth should be go forward with a minimum disruption to the community. I believe that elected officials, which I hope to be, should play by the rules and not change them midstream. And that's why I oppose the APFS. And I went to a meeting on Monday, and I was surprised to see how many leaders of the community were there. There were leaders of every single area that was affected by these proposed amendments. And they were vehemently opposed to it. Not just opposed, but very opposed. And for that reason, I believe that the APFS is working because we have some control over our school capacity. It's still over, but it's not intolerable. I pledge not to ignore the residents if I'm elected, or when I'm elected to the City Council. I pledge to march, and hopefully in the front of a better Rockville. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Next candidate is Julie Polakovich-Carr.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Rockville Community Coalition for organizing tonight's event. I think that we can all agree that Rockville is a very special place. That's why my husband and I chose to make it our home. We've put down roots in the community and look forward to raising children here. I'm running for City Council to help ensure that Rockville remains a great place to live. I will bring a balanced and sustainable approach to city government and will work to address the needs of all residents. I've spent much of my time in Rockville working to improve our city. I served as chair of the task force that reviewed a key city policy that regulates new development, the APFO, where I pushed for a balanced approach for growth. As a council member, I will work to preserve the character of our neighborhoods while allowing Rockville to continue to grow economically. I will support thoughtful redevelopment that is in the best interest of the community and does not unduly impact the adequacy of services for existing residents. I'm serving my second term on the city's Environment Commission, where I helped Rockville become the second municipality in Maryland to be certified as a sustainable city. I will continue to build Rockville's reputation as an environmental leader by pushing for actions that are good for both the environment and for taxpayers' wallets. As vice chair of the City Services and Budget Working Group, I help plan for the city's long-term fiscal health. If elected, I will support high-quality services, deal with the backlog of infrastructure projects, and maintain a balanced budget. I will ensure that the city continues to improve program efficiency and effectiveness so that we can have high-quality services while striving to not increase the tax burden on residents. Rockville is a great city because residents have spent generations building it into a great city. I will work with the community to continue that effort. I'd be honored to serve as a member of the next City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. The next candidate is Don Hadley.
How can a guy with two names run for office? Thank you for inviting all of us here tonight, myself included. And in fact, it's a rare privilege to be included. I've never run for a public office before. My epiphany to run was 2 days before the filing deadline for getting on the ballot. And frankly, I was disturbed. No offense to my colleagues who were on the slate, but it seemed to me like and that the affinities, whatever they are, among the members of the slate, and God bless them, needed to have some diversity. And the diversity that I bring is that despite what we're talking about, moderate growth, in fact, I am a person who believes that the growth of the city should be measured both in terms of how it occurs, when it occurs, and to what degree of intensity it occurs. I think this issue is a seminal issue. It affects schools, traffic, budget, affordable housing, police protection, senior housing, our neighborhoods, the sanctity of our neighborhoods. We have candidates before you who are pledging to get along. I don't think we need to get along. I think we need to have a common vision. I think we're missing a common vision in Rockville, not for lack of trying, but for lack of succeeding. And I think the ingredient that's missing in that is the people. I think we're top down, all of us up here trying to tell you what we want to do. The issue is, what do the people want to do? And I'm proud that on Monday night, even though there was some rancor and cantankerousness, in fact, a whole bunch of people turned out and advised the mayor and council on their best thoughts, and they were learned thoughts about a subject that's complex. They only had 3 weeks to bone up on it. And out of that is going to come good results, and it's because of the people. And that's what I want to do, is get the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. The next candidate, or last candidate this evening to go first, is Virginia Onley.
Hi, I'm Virginia Onley, and I've lived in Rockville for 20 years and served on 9 boards, commissions, and task force. I also live at the Americana Center, and I've served on their homeowners board. I believe in serving all Rockville neighborhoods, and for some reason, some of our citizens in neighborhoods feel that they are not represented. I will represent everyone, regardless of where you live or where I live. I also want to build some trust, because I've noticed lately that there's a distrust going on between neighborhoods, elected officials, and Rockville City staff. And it's important. With my 35 years as an IBM employee, I learned to manage and to get consensus when people had different opinions, and I will do that in the city. I vow to put my personal differences aside and work with everyone in the city, staff, and other elected officials. I've also been a member of the Senior Citizen Commission, and I was a member there when they launched the computer lab that you have today. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right thing to do for the seniors. I've also served on the Human Rights Commission, Rockville Enterprise Housing, where since I've been on there, we have purchased 240 homes for moderate to low income housing. I'm really proud to be a member of Rockville Housing, because it helps me relate to people who have less. And I promise that I will represent the West End, East Rockville, Lincoln Park, and all neighborhoods within the city of Rockville. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. So let's give everyone a round of applause. Let's thank Ed and ask him to now get back to a chair. And I suspect that Beryl is watching at home, so I think we just want to send our very best wishes for a quick and full recovery, Beryl. So now we're going to take questions, and as promised, we're going to do them in random order from the luxurious cloth bag. And the first person to answer the first question will be Julie Polakovich-Carr. And the question that we just thought would be a good place to start, what do you think are the 3 most pressing issues currently facing the mayor and council, and how do you believe that these issues should be resolved? And if you can do all that we have a minute, right? No problem. So you're going to have to talk speedily. Julie.
Sure. Well, as I mentioned in my opening statement, Rockville is a great place to live, but that doesn't mean that there aren't problems. As I've been out knocking in doors in every neighborhood in Rockville, I've heard from concerns from residents. I've heard about people's concerns about the traffic congestion on Rockville Pike, about school overcrowding, as well as pedestrian safety. I think those are some of the issues that are an appropriate place for the mayor and council to be delving into during the next 2 years and to be helping to fix some of those problems. In terms of traffic congestion, clearly we need a new plan for Rockville Pike. It's been about 30 years since we've dealt with that issue, and there are some opportunities to add mass transit, make it more bike-friendly and more pedestrian-friendly. In terms of school overcrowding, it's a big issue, tough nut to crack, but we'll need to work with the county and with the school system to make sure that we have the funds available to expand on schools. And in terms of pedestrian safety, of course, there's infrastructure projects that we can pursue, but it's also about personal responsibility.
Thank you, Julie. Next to answer that question on priorities is going to be Claire Marcuccio-Whitaker.
Yes, the 3 areas that I'm most concerned about is first the APFS, or APFO, the Rockville Pike Plan, and fees and taxes and keeping individuals with fixed incomes in the city. I combine those together. I think that the APFS is on track now. It's going back to the Planning Committee. There are recommendations. I think Julie was involved in them. I think the Planning Commission will no doubt come out with a plan that will hopefully meet the needs of the school overcrowding, not exacerbate the situation, and come back to the council for review. The Rockville Pike Plan, that's a 2-mile stretch. There's going to be mini town centers and multiple housing. I think that we have to work with the community, the other jurisdictions, and in terms of the seniors and others in low income.
Thank you, Claire. So I didn't give a shout out to Ken Sandin, our timer, and he's going to be carefully watching and make sure this all stays really fair. So thank you. And as Don said to me when he came in, he heard that I was a brutal moderator, and I just try to keep it fair. So I will be cutting you off when the red sign goes up. Next up is Virginia Onley.
Okay. I think the APFO, and I support it, but the APFO needs to be our guide tool. We can't just create an APFO or an APFS, put it to bid, and then say, 5 years from now, we need to look at it again. I think it's something that we really need to focus on, and we really need to work together, because schools will overcrowd. We also need to work with Montgomery County Public Schools to make sure our children get their fair share of schools. I think the growth is another issue with Town Center 2 and the Rockville Pike Plan, and those are all issues that I will concentrate on, because it's very important that we grow in years to come and not in the next 10 minutes. And I guess my time is up. Is that
No, you have 15 seconds.
Oh, okay.
Go fast.
And the other thing is making sure that we all are heard in this city and not just particular neighborhoods. It's important that we're all represented. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next will be Tom Moore.
I think the 3 most pressing issues are growth, schools, and the Rockville Pike Plan. That's going to be, all 3 are going to be big in the next 2 years. With growth, it's how do we best balance it? How do we best express the actual, all the goals of this city through the way that we want to grow? The APFO is one tool for that. It's not our only tool, and it may not even be the best tool for a lot of the challenges that are facing us. With schools, obviously it's a county issue, not directly a city issue. What the city can do is make absolutely sure that Richard Montgomery Elementary School number 5 gets built on schedule. That is absolutely a top city priority no matter who is elected. Third would be the Rockville Pike Plan. This is our chance to remake what Rockville Pike is going to look like over the next 30, 40, 50 years. I think this will echo throughout the rest of the city. We have to make sure that we protect our neighborhoods. We have to make sure that we improve traffic, and we just have to make sure that again that our goals are expressed the way we want them in that plan. So it'll be a busy 2 years for any of us.
Thank you, Tom. And I don't need to look into the bag to know that Don will wrap us up on this question.
I'm much relieved that you don't have Claire's baton to be whacking us with.
That could be arranged.
I think that the nest of issues that we're talking about, which is growth, APFO, APFS, traffic, those are really one issue. They're coming back to the Planning Commission, of which I'm a part. And the reason that we're going to do them better this time, I think, is because we're going to collaborate with every community that's involved, developers, builders, homeowners, neighborhoods, community associations. The answer to this can't come from any one of us up here telling you what's best or slugging it out on what our theories are. It can't be theoretical. It has to be practical. In addition, there is, again, affordable housing. There are huge budget implications, and they're not really a part of the process now. We can't really talk about the answers until we know what it's going to cost us and how we're going to pay for it. So I would say the big nest of all the things we talked about, affordable housing and the money, how we're going to do this without overtaxing ourselves or raising fees or other ways to get around the fact that money can be limited. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. So Don just mentioned, and was a perfect segue to the next question, and that is people just love paying taxes, they love their fees, and they love their services. So the question is about, in your opinion, are there places in the Rockville City budget where savings can be made? And that could be either in cut of services or in cut of personnel, cut of fees, cut of anything that you want. So just speak broadly, if you would, about fiscal savings. And leading us off on that question will be Don Hadley.
Well, we'll cut all the salaries for the mayor and the councilman. I don't know the answer to that. I've been in a month and I've read the budget, but that's far deeper than, I would be lying to you if I told you I know how to cut it. But I think it's a revenue problem, basically. The question is, how are we going to generate the funds that are adequate for the needs we have? We can review those, but as a campaign issue, to start talking about whose bull we're going to gore in saving money, I think is the wrong approach. And again, I think this comes from the ground up. There is expertise that's involved, but I think we need a vision for the city. We need to know what it costs. Then we'll know how to allocate our resources. It's an asset if I could talk, I'd be good. If it's an asset allocation issue, not a pick who's going to suffer most. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. And the next is going to be Julie Polakovich-Carr.
Thank you. When I served on the Rockville Summit, the task force that I was on was charged actually with looking at the city's fiscal health, both in the short term, but really also in the long term. And thankfully, we didn't identify any crisis in the short term, but there certainly will be some issues in the out years, 10, 20 years from now. That committee did make a number of recommendations in terms of efforts that the city should be pursuing. One was actually the idea of a SAVE award, like the federal government does, where city employees and residents could nominate programs or ways to save money in the city. Another recommendation that came out of the committee that I believe is a good one has to do with evaluating program efficiency and to actually ask the hard question of, is this something that the city should be doing? Is it duplicative of what the county or the private sector is offering? And if the answer is no to those questions, great, but making sure that we're running the program in the most effective way possible. And lastly, I think this is also a revenue problem that we need to pursue ways to expand the tax base through thoughtful development and perhaps even annexation of adjacent lands outside the city.
Thank you, Julie. Next, we'd like to hear from Tom Moore, please.
The budget of the city is actually pretty healthy. In 2013, even though property tax assessments went down by a couple percent, we managed to keep the rates steady. tighten the belt. We actually balanced the budget. It actually worked out. In 2014, property values started rising again, so we actually ended up with a little bit of extra money. We got extra money from the state for police officers. We got extra money from the state for transportation projects. The rate has held steady for probably close to 10 years now. It's at a point where the growth that we're experiencing in the city and the growth in property values over time is pretty much keeping pace with the needs of the city to maintain our excellent services. So we want to keep an eye on it, but we don't need to make major changes. One thing we do need to do is we do need to be socking away more for capital projects. Bridges are going to be a big expense. There are a lot of roof projects and buildings like this throughout the city. So we'll have to work on that a little bit, but I think our growth will take care of it.
Thank you, Tom. Virginia, you're next, please.
Okay. Well, I wouldn't want to cut services, but one of the things that I've noticed recently is that we could do some water conservation. And I think it's an educational thing. I went into a meeting at 9 o'clock, and the water at this building was running and running. And I came out at 2:30, and the water was running and running and running. And I made kind of a joke about it. Who pays that water bill? But I believe that we could do a grassroots campaign to educate our residents on water conservation. And I really believe that that would be one way that we could cut costs.
Thank you, Virginia. And Claire, you'll wrap us up.
Yes, I think Virginia's got a good idea there. Perhaps one of the ways that the government can save some money is to reduce the use of contractors. I know we had 3 contracts that I can think of right now. The logo, which cost us $75,000, the personnel study, which cost us $200,000, and the Pike Plan study, another $500,000. So contracts like that can go upward of $1 million. If we do them in-house, perhaps that's a better way than spending the money through contracting. We might also consider saving money through attrition of staff. You know, it's pretty easy to leave a position empty for a period of time, and then that's another way of saving perhaps as much as $1 million. I think we should look at initiatives for long-term environmental grants and initiatives to take advantage of federal funds if the government ever goes back to work. There are grant funds for the environment. We have already taken advantage of the Stewart-McKinney Act when we got the post office. That didn't cost us any money. I know the renovations cost money, but we did get that through a program that the federal government has, and we ought to look into that as well, see if there are any other empty government buildings that we could pick up. Also, the Karma Academy, we ought to get that from Montgomery County.
Thank you, Claire. For our third question, the person who will lead us off is Claire. And the question is, what do you see as the long-term vision for the ultimate development of Rockville's Town Center?
Town Center?
Town
or
Center.
The Rockville Pike, the whole thing?
It says Rockville Town Center. We're going to get to the Pike possibly later. You can do as you
Yeah,
like.
I see the Rockville Town Center as a complement to the second phase, as a complement to the first phase. I think that we could make that a live at 5 or after 5 a place. I'm not opposed to mixed use at all. I think that that's actually a good idea if people are actually going to buy the properties or rent the properties. I know we had a hard time doing that before. I'd like to see some water. We have a tiny little spot that John Mosier put a funny little fountain in, but I think we should have something like the place up the road the Rio has. I think that's attractive. Maybe there's not enough space, but that's my view.
Thank you, Claire. Sorry. Doing too many things here. Next on that will be Virginia Onley.
Okay. I'd like to see something that would host families, something that would really draw families in. And the only thing I can think of right now is the little park where you have like these miniature golf course. They have little putt-putt golf. But I believe families would go to Town Center too if we had that. We have a lot of nice establishments in Town Center, but I don't think there's anything that just zeroes in on, okay, it's family day. And I really would like to see that. I've spoke about this before for Town Center too. I think it would be good for the city, and I think it would attract people from other areas to actually be able to bring their children into Town Center and enjoy an evening or a day or an afternoon out. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next, we'd like to hear from Tom Moore, please.
The thing we want to see in Town Center 2 is that the city's and the county's massive investments in Town Center 1 are protected. The city spent tens of millions of dollars on garages in that area, and the county spent a lot of money building that library. And the reason we did it was to kind of provide a spark for the rest of the area, so that we don't own a lot of land in Town Center 2. The county doesn't own anything there. And the idea is if we put first-class development right there, that things would kind of grow organically after that. One of the things that I've been concentrating on is the parcel where the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department is. That's a tough nut right now because of the restrictions that we have in place. That property is just not that valuable. They would very much like to move somewhere else. It's better for their first 2 area and so forth. I used to be a volunteer with the fire department. I care very deeply about their future. With the way our rules are right now, their future is tied to that parcel, and that parcel isn't as valuable for them as it could be. So that's one of the things I'm absolutely going to concentrate on if you send me back to office.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. Next is Don Hadley.
I don't think anyone has a viable vision for Town Center 2 yet, and it bothers me that we're not working on that. And I can tell you what I think, but it matters less what I think than what I think about the process we go through to get the vision. And I envision more of a participatory process in which developers and businesses and neighborhoods and all the stakeholders are there. I think it needs to be a semi-urban, that is a Rockville scale of urbanization. I think it needs to complement Town Center 1, but not mimic it. We need to have more local business. We need to have some park space. I agree with Ms. Onley, I think we need to have some emphasis on family participation there in terms of residency. 15 minutes to go, 15 seconds to go. Thank you. The point I'm trying to make is, I can wax eloquently about my vision, but again, I think we need leadership to form a vision, and we don't have that. And to have people on the council and the mayor vying as to what their position is ridiculous. It's what the people want.
Thank you. On the ballot in November are not just... Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
No
Julie
problem.
Palakovich-Carr, please wrap us up. I deeply apologize.
No problem. Well, I think the original phase of Town Center has been a big success. It certainly is a vibrant center to our community that attracts people from all walks of life, families, seniors, single people, etc. And it is a very interesting place culturally in terms of the restaurants and shops. And I was just there yesterday and in the afternoon and saw the number of kids that were playing in the plaza area in front of the library. I think those are all laudable goals that we should be looking at implementing in the second phase of Town Center. I think, unfortunately, though, we are somewhat hamstringed by the APFO. I should say that I support having an APFO for the city, but some of the unintended consequences at this point is that we cannot build residential housing that will generate children in the second phase. So right now, the only residences planned for phase 2 is senior housing. So we're somewhat limited in what can happen in Town Center, as Tom mentioned, but we need to be certainly planning for that future so that we can continue to have a vibrant city center.
Thank you, Julie. So because I was planning in advance, I'm shifting the next question to something about planning. I'm going to mush 2 questions together because we've gotten a lot of great questions. So thanks to the Rockville Community Coalition and to all of you in the audience for submitting some really thoughtful questions on a variety of issues. So thank you for that. There are several questions about the Rockville Pike Plan, and specifically I'd love to know, and we'd all love to know, which aspects of the Pike Plan that you support and why. And the other part is with development around Rockville, what do you think the mayor and council should do, if anything, to ensure that the city has adequate green space? So you can think on that while I get ready to pull a name here. And Claire, you have already been first, so it won't be you. Virginia, please lead us off.
Well, as I look at the Rockville Pike plans, what I like the best, and I live at Americana, so near the mixing bowl, I like the express lanes. That is what I like. I think once we get those installed, it'll move traffic down the pike and back in a much rapid speed, and it'll be much more efficient. If you go to the city and you look at Washington, D.C. K Street, where they have the local lanes. I used to work there. And coming in the morning, we would breeze in and breeze out. Now, that doesn't say we're not going to have traffic, but traffic is just going to run more efficiently. What was the Pike plan? And there was, I'm sorry.
Green space.
Oh, the green space. I think we've done a good job on that. I don't think we're at a loss for green space, but I would also like to identify areas on the Pike plan that we have sufficient green space, because there's nothing better than the Rockville parks. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Next, Councilmember Tom Moore.
One of the things I like best about the Rockville Pike plan is the cross-section that it's mapping out right now in its general form for the Pike. We will have green space and local lanes and express lanes, bus rapid transit perhaps in the middle. That's something that we need to take a look at. The county's moving forward with that. We've had a lot of information from the county on that recently. That'll be years away, but if that goes down the middle of Rockville Pike, that will transform the way that we use that part of the city. It will be tremendously friendlier for bikes and pedestrians. My kids and I are sometimes biking down through the parking lots and up and down the sidewalks trying to get from one place to another on the Pike, and it is harrowing. We need a friendlier Pike for pedestrians and bicyclists. For the green space, the area that's encompassed by the Pike plan doesn't really have any green space, doesn't have any parks. And that's a key part of the plan, and if the Planning Commission ever finishes up with it, done, that would be great. We absolutely want to make sure that there are good parks built into that all along.
Thank you, Tom. The next person to respond to this question is going to be Claire Marcuccio Whitaker.
It's hard to visualize a really positive idea about Rockville Pike just because I know how many people that are going to be brought in. Rockville will probably be doubled, and we'll have many, many more cars and all kinds of problems. But I think that one of the points of having that rapid transit is important, and to have the trees there. But the most important thing is that I think that people are actually committed to having a coordinated planning process for the Pike that takes into consideration the county and the state and Rockville's needs. And that's what I'm hopeful for. As far as the trees or green space, one of the things I think would be a good idea for perhaps the Planning Commission to look at, I don't know exactly where it fits in, but I'll find out, and that is taking trees down that are 100 years old and putting saplings in its place. I think we ought to change that a little bit.
Thank you, Claire. Next is going to be Julie Polakovich-Carr, please.
So I actually read the entirety of the Rockville Pike plan as it stood a few months ago, cover to cover, all few hundred pages of it. And I think it's great that the Planning Commission has been engaged in this process to think about the future of the Pike, because we certainly want to be engaging in thoughtful redevelopment along that commercial sector. Certainly supporting mixed use with retail, commercial, and residential, it should be the future of the Pike, although I have my reservations about some of the density that's proposed in the current Rockville Pike plan. 13-story tall buildings may not be appropriate. Other parts of the plan that I support certainly are the proposal to have bus rapid transit. We need more mass transit in Rockville, and Rockville needs to have a seat at the table with the county and the state as they're planning for the future of Rockville. The Pike plan includes bike lanes, wider sidewalks, things that will make that part of Rockville more walkable, which are certainly laudable goals. In terms of green spaces, I believe there are currently some plans for parks in the southern part of the Pike, which is important because right now that part of the city does not really have much open space or green spaces, and we want to make sure that people in all neighborhoods have access to that.
Thank you, Julie. And wrapping us up, Don Hadley.
Well, as the chairman of the Planning Commission, I've reviewed it from cover to cover more than a few times. Even if it has taken 2 years, and it's going to take a while longer, Just for the record, the Pike Plan is not a finished plan. It's a work in progress. It also includes a revision of a zoning code, which has to be done as well as this dream document, if you will. I have favored that we lower densities all the way through, which we have. I have favored that we take a look at the intermediate step. In other words, bus rapid transit isn't going to be here, if it ever comes, for a long time. The idea of reducing parking and going high and generally urbanizing the area, and it did start out as an urbanizing plan. And I think we've changed that to be a neighborhood plan, that we're protecting Rockville's neighborhoods and that it should be consistent with the neighborhoods. Parks are a must. Developers don't like them. They're a high cost to the city. There's a high cost for what we do. But lower density all the way through, and we're still open to that. We've reversed ourselves in the last couple of weeks. That may be frustrating time-wise. I don't see why we can't take the time we need for a 20 or 30-year plan.
Thank you, Don. Okay, for our fifth question, we're going to be in rotation, and Tom Moore, you'll be going first. In addition to our candidates for mayor and council, on the ballot there are going to be some charter questions. And we'd like each of the candidates to speak to not only their views on the charter questions, but also the weight to which they would offer our views as voters. Once we speak out, it is sort of an advisory opinion to the mayor and council, and we'd love to hear whether they would, I don't want to say obey, but defer to the voters, or whether they think that mayor and council should make its decision and be informed by. So if you could speak to both aspects of that. Lead us off, please, Tom.
I'll start with the citizen part first. You know, we are going to have an advisory vote on this, and in the past, it's just been a yes or no matter. This year, it's going to be a little bit different. Voters will be able to say yes, no, or no opinion, and that gives. In the past, it almost worked as a referendum, which I don't think was healthy. The way our charter is set up, the council members are supposed to listen to the people and then make their own decisions, but the referendum is not supposed to decide the matter. This time, people will be able to look at it, members will be able to look at it and make an informed judgment from what they see from those numbers. There are three questions. One is to increase the size of the council from 4 to 6 members. I think that's kind of a solution chasing a problem. I don't really have an opinion on that one way or the other. One is to increase the length of the terms from 2 years to 4 years. On its own, not a big deal. The one that is a big deal is changing our elections to the presidential years. In 2012, 70% of Rockville voters turned out. In the last election we've had here, in the last few, it was 17% in city elections. That's too low.
Thank you, Tom. I apologize. And next, Claire Marcuccio-Whitaker.
I think changing the term of office to 4 years is absolutely critical. I've seen the people get into office and then they have to turn around and start campaigning if they want to run again. And I think 4 years makes much more sense. And I do think they can make inroads to working with the staff better. I think the staff may sometimes, not be able to come back to them within the 2-year period with recommendations. So I think that's important. I think expanding the membership to from what it is now is really important too. I see all the problems that we have in the 3-2 vote, and I think that's absolutely critical. And as far as changing it to the presidential elections, I would hate to see Rockville become a partisan jurisdiction. I do think there should be more people out to vote, but would there be more people out to vote for Rockville just because, because they're voting in the presidential election? I don't know that they would know anything more.
Thank you. Again, sorry, I'm not being rude. I'm just watching our timekeeper here. Julie Polakovich-Carr, you're next. We seem to be going right down the aisle this time.
Clearly, increasing voter turnout is an important goal for the city. As Tom was mentioning, only 17% of Rockville voters turned out in the last city election, which is just not where democracy should be at. These are important questions because the number of people that represent us and how long they serve for are kind of the basis of our democracy. To be honest, my views on these questions have been evolving over time. In terms of the timing question, I think that there have been good arguments made on both sides of the issue, and I appreciate the debate actually that RCC held in the spring of the year to examine that. But there are some key differences between how the city runs its elections versus how the county and state run theirs. Amenities like offering curbside voting, and I'm not quite sure yet how those get rectified if we change our elections. In terms of how I would deal with the referendum questions and how voters feel on that, it's certainly going to be an important data point, but it's not the only one. I think there's logistical questions that we need to pursue in terms of cost and staff resources as well.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, and indeed, Don, you're next.
Here we go. I served on the Charter Review Commission, and a number of these questions are very close. We held town meetings or community meetings, and the input that we received was not overwhelming in favor of any one thing. And so the decisions we came to were largely a matter of what we thought was our best judgment. It was a very collegial best judgment, but there was lots of discussion along the way. I think moving the number of councilmen or women from 4 to 6, making a total voting body of 7, is a good idea because we need broader representation in this $62,000 or $3,000, I love it, people, community that we have now. In terms of presidential elections, I'm very close on that. I would not personally advocate for or against that. Sorry to be a fence sitter, but I am. I think that's why we go to the people. And I've got 15 seconds. I keep watching the time. In terms of, what am I missing? In terms of the term, same thing. I think 2 years has very substantial advantages. 4 years do the advantage of 4 years is that people don't have to turn around.
Thank you, Don.
Goodbye.
Sorry. People don't have to turn around.
That's the problem
amazing.
with 2 years.
Virginia, please.
I also served on the Charter Review Commission, and 2 versus 4 years. I think by the time you serve 2 years, you're just getting your feet wet, and it's time to go out and campaign again. So I really support 4 years. As far as the members, they had to talk me down on that. At first I said, is it going to be more members representing more of the city, or is it going to be more arguments? But in the end, I did support increasing the number of people on the council. And as far as changing the election year to the presidential, I think that we didn't discuss this very much, but I think we can still keep it at an odd year and skip a year. But I really do think it needs to be every 4 years. And I believe if we kept it that way, we would not change the character of Rockville, because that's what people are most concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for sharing your views on that, you guys. I hope that helps. The debate or the forum that I think Julie was the one who referenced, Rockville Community Coalition, is it available on on RCC's website or somewhere else if people want to be educated? Yes. Okay, and that website is? rockcom.org, and there was a very thoughtful debate with really smart people on both sides of each one of those issues, with good studies and former elected officials and Rockville leaders, as well as folks with national insights. And they had a kind of annoying moderator, but other than that, it was a really good debate.
Much nicer.
Yeah, I wasn't cutting people off quite the same way. So we're going to have a new question, and everyone's eligible to go first again. And the question is, that's going to go to Julie Polakovich-Carr. And this came from our audience, so thank you for your thoughtful questions. What can you do for independent small businesses in Rockville? Thank you.
Well, clearly, local and independent businesses are the heart of the business community here in Rockville. The economic return from local businesses is much greater than for chains. Not to say that they're not an important part of the commercial base here in Rockville as well. One thing that I've heard repeatedly throughout the last few months has been that Rockville may not be as business friendly as it could be, particularly in terms of some of the processes that we have. We're not talking about weakening processes, but just making them a little more streamlined so it's more effective from city staff's perspective and from applicants and people seeking permits, so that time is money for businesses. So if we can streamline processes, we can help save money.
Thank you, Julie. Next is Don Hadley.
I don't think we have enough affordable and accessible space for local businesses in Rockville. And I think one of the threats of over-urbanization, as I would call it, is that it tends to put a Starbucks or a gym or a restaurant in the first floor of every building, and it's not affordable or usable space for local businesses. So I think in Town Center 2, part of that plan needs to be to provide really shoppable space where people can go and people who live there can be served. I'm delighted to see Dawson's Market here. I know it's a specialty market, but it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you, Don. Virginia Onley.
I think one of the things we could do as small businesses move in is encourage them to have theme nights so that they could bring people out, give a discount, give a coupon, have a door prize, but just to bring people in. I think that advertising is the key. People like local businesses, people like small businesses. Dawson's Market is a very good example. I go there just about every week. Now, some things are very expensive for my pocketbook at Dawson's, but I have found things that I can afford there, so I patronize them on a regular basis. And I think just getting the word out and encouraging people to use our small businesses and encouraging them to do things to bring customers in is what we really need. Thank you.
Okay, we're getting a lot of good commercials for Dawson's Market in Town Center. We gotta support our Town Center businesses. Tom Moore, tell us more about all that.
Well, I can tell you what I did do. During this term, I asked the city staff to look at what was the maximum thing that we could do to help city businesses who are looking for city contracts. It turns out it's not a lot. There are a lot of things in place to protect taxpayer money, basically. One thing that we could do, and we did do, is to the tie goes to the local business. And I was surprised that wasn't part of our procedures before. But if there are two bids that are equal in most ways, or substantively equal, the tie goes to the local business, and that was a good change. When I was out talking listening to the folks at one of our local businesses, Shaladia, it's an engineering company up on Shady Grove Road on our side. They said we can win contracts all over the world, but we can't win them in the city of Rockville, and so that was designed to help that. The other thing we can do is we can clean up our permitting processes. We need to make them a one-stop shopping. We need to make them more predictable. We need to just make them easier. So if a local business wants to renovate, a local business wants to expand, they don't have to jump through as many hoops as they're jumping through now.
Thank you, Tom. Claire, wrap us up.
I think that we can patronize them. I think that's an important thing. We have a lot of small businesses right around town center, but not in the town center itself, like El Carbones, which is a Latino restaurant just on the other side of the metro. We have Ruth's Animal Exchange. I think she's here tonight, Ruth and Hanessian. I think there's Giuseppe's and Frames by James. I try to use the small businesses as much as possible. I think we could also get those signs up for those small businesses. They really need to have somebody know where they are, and I think the sign ordinance ought to be looked at.
Thank you, Claire. And this is going to be our last question before closing remarks. And once again, there are a lot of questions, and thank you to members of the audience who submitted them, and thank you to the Rockville Community Coalition for some really excellent issues. So again, I'm going to kind of mush two together. So Rockville has become increasingly diverse, and if we look at the room here, we're not so diverse as we ought to be. And so the question is about how can we engage populations that are not engaged now? How can we make people feel really welcome and support increasing diversity in the city? What sort of changes or enhancements should we offer? So that's the question. And leading us off is going to be Don Hadley.
In traveling the highways and byways of our fair city, a common theme that I hear, even in the 30 days that I've been on the campaign trail, is nobody listens. Why should I exert myself? Nobody listens. I know that in one area of our city, that former sort of sub-community groups for the Asian community and for the Latin community have essentially disbanded because they don't feel included. That there's no real place at the table for them. I think the leadership that we need at the mayor and council is where it starts. And we have to include people as a matter of daily routine in every city activity and communication that we do. And I think that sitting on the council, we actually have to get into the communities and see people. We have to resurrect our community associations. The ones I go to, we have 1,000 people in the area and 12 show up for the community association. It takes outreach. People won't come unless you reach out to them, and that's what we have to devise, how we're going to do that.
Thank you, Don. Claire, you're next.
I think that Well, certainly there isn't a problem at the senior center. The senior center has Hispanics and Asians, and they enjoy it. And there's no, and in the swim center. I mean, I don't think that there's any issue that people feel like they can't use city facilities, and they do take advantage of them, and I think that's great. I think that people of different cultures and societies are really want to assimilate into Rockville and don't want to be in a separate environment. Yes, we do provide these Spanish translations. Maybe we could do more of that so that people would understand. But in the long run, I think that the Asian community, for instance, wants to be part of the regular community. Nobody wants to just be an enclave by themselves, and that's what I found.
Thank you, Claire. Next, Julie Polakovich-Carr.
Rockville's diversity is actually one of the reasons that my husband and I chose to make it our home. I think it's one of the real treasures of our community. I think with the new city website that launched a few months ago, the fact that you can translate any web page now into a multitude of languages is really important in terms of being an inclusive community. But beyond that, I think one of the key steps that we can take is to try to recruit more diverse people to serve on our boards and commissions. These are the groups that are thought leaders in the community and helping to provide important advice to the mayor and council. And so if we can make the effort to include more people there and to really put the effort into recruiting them, that should help with further steps down the road.
Thank you, Julie. Tom Moore, you're next.
This is kind of a sideways look at it, but I think that the best way we can engage our minority community in this city is to change to the presidential year for voting. The folks who vote during presidential years are a much more diverse group of people who then vote, folks who vote in our city elections right now. And there's this theory that if you make people committed citizens voting rates, that's true. But I think the reverse is also true. If you increase your voter turnout, you make those people into committed citizens. People who vote in city elections will look at that and say, for the next 2 years, they'll say, I voted for that idiot Moore. What's he up to? It invests them in their city government. So I think the single thing that we could do that would invest our minority community into the life of this city more is to move our elections to the presidential. It seems a little backwards, but I think there's a pretty direct link.
Thank you, Tom. Wrapping us up, Virginia Onley.
Well, the city is very diverse, and unfortunately, we don't have the diverse population actually participating in our processes. They are at the senior center, the swim center. If there's Asian special days that they celebrate, but for some reason, we can't seem to engage them. And I would do an outreach to get them in our processes. They don't apply for boards and commissions. They're at hometown holidays. They're at all our functions. And I think we just need to collectively go to these communities and engage them in certain things so that they can be a part of the process. It's really nice that we have a diverse city. It's what I love about it. But we don't have them, and we need to do an all-out campaign to get them involved in what goes on in this city. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. We're going to shift to our closing remarks. I think the candidates did a really nice job, so congratulations and thank you. And thanks to the audience. You guys were great. So I'm inviting Ed Feinberg to scurry back up here really quickly. And while he's hustling, let me just remind you that we started at this end of the table and went down. So to close, we're going to go in the opposite direction, not do random, so that they can not be dealing with surprises. I am stalling as long as I can. Ed, come on up.
Yes.
Okay. So Virginia, could you please close for us as soon as Ed sits down? Thank you very much. Virginia
You ready
Onley.
for me? Okay. I've been in the city 20 years. I've served on boards and commissions. I've had a lot of success rates with every board and commission that I have served on, whether it was the Senior Commission, the Human Rights Commission, and the one I'm most proud of, Rockville Housing Enterprises. We have moved the group that I work with forward, and I will continue to move the city forward with my outreach into all neighborhoods, with doing what's best for the city. As I've worked and made inroads, no one has ever said, well, Virginia Onley had it her way. It was her way or the highway. What they've said is that I always did what was best and put 100% in the project and into the people and the commissions that I'm working for. I will continue to do that in this city because I think it's important. To learn more about me, please visit my website, votevirginiaonly.org, or you can email me at virginiacares@votevirginiaonly.org. Thank you for listening this evening.
Thank you, Virginia Onley. Next, Don Hadley.
Both of us.
I'm just reading what you've got there,
I
because
know,
that's the way it's going
I
to be on
know.
the ballot, so I'm
I
just
know.
trying to be fair.
All right. Well, I'm going to utter some prophetic words, and I don't in any way measure up to the man who uttered them, but I have a dream. I have a dream. In Martin Luther King's speech, his dream concluded with a plea for freedom. We have freedom, but we don't exercise it. We don't exercise it. So my dream is that we, by reaching out one-on-one and by encouragement to every organization, every person in the city, come to a common vision of what we want in all of the issues we've been talking about. Development, big, little, local business, affordable housing, budgets, all of that. The way I believe I can help do that is that's what I facilitated in business for the last 40-some years. That's the kind of attorney I am. Conflict resolution, turning businesses generation to generation, bringing people to agreement. That's what I'd love to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Don Hadley. Next, Julie Polakovich-Carr.
I've spent the last 6 months talking to residents from all across Rockville. While knocking on more than 4,000 doors, I've heard time and again that Rockville is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Residents have told me that they value the excellent services provided by the city, but they've also expressed concerns about traffic congestion, pedestrian safety, school overcrowding, property taxes, and the environment. If elected, I will be your advocate on these issues. I will work with the mayor and other members of the council to represent the needs of all of Rockville as we make key decisions about the future of our community. My professional experience at a nonprofit, on Capitol Hill, and on numerous citizen advisory bodies has prepared me to lead the city and to carefully weigh the long-term consequences of the decisions that the next mayor and council will make. Because the decisions that we make today are not just about the community that we live in, but the community that future generations will inherit. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie Polakovich-Carr. And next is Claire Mercutio-Whitaker.
Yes, I've been waiting the whole entire time to have the question asked, why do I think that I'm qualified to be on the city council? Because I've not been on a board or a commission, and I want to address that. First of all, my sister, Phyllis Marcuccio, is the mayor, and I didn't think for 4 years I could ask her to appoint me to the planning commission. Didn't seem to be appropriate. But it's not that I don't have experience. For 10 years, I worked at the D.C. Court of Appeals, and I prepared the budget that went to Congress. I went up to the Congress with the chief judge and sat at the table with him when he justified the budget. I went to the U.S. Attorney's Office. There for 3 years, I was the chief administrative person. I was the chief administrative attorney, and I handled the hiring, all personnel matters, all acquisitions, all IT. I was a past president of the Federal Bar Association and the chairman of the litigation section of the Federal Bar. So I think I have a pretty good background for leadership.
Thank you, Claire. Claire Mercutio-Whitaker. Sorry.
I've got the tool.
Okay, we're done. We're done. Okay. Next up to wrap up is Councilmember Tom Moore.
Some real change is coming to Rockville, and it's not just around the metro stations in town center. One way or another, at least 3 of the members of the mayor and council are going to be brand new to the body next year. This makes your close attention to these elections especially important. I have the judgment and the experience to continue to lead on the charter questions, on the Pike Plan, on our upcoming budgets, and whatever else comes our way. I ask you for your continued support and your vote on November 5th. I ask you also to support my fellow Team Rockville members, Mark Paschala for mayor, and Beryl Feinberg, Virginia Onley, and Julie Polakovich-Carr for council. They are dedicated public servants who are each very well suited to lead this city. We don't agree on everything, as you've seen tonight, We agree on less than I thought, actually. But we will bring a common, sensible vision to governing this city. That is what we can guarantee you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom Moore. And closing us up, as you see, Beryl L. Feinberg has a change of costume here. And so again, for those who might have missed the opening, Beryl has been sick, and her husband, Ed Feinberg, has read an opening statement and will now read a closing statement that Beryl has crafted. Ed.
Beryl has been passionate about so much in all aspects of her personal and professional life. She's currently the chairman of Montgomery Hospice. She's a former librarian with the Montgomery County Library Agency, and she's an expert in public finance, both in her academic and professional pursuits. She would bring a sophistication and an insight and passion and compassion to this position. And she has had the benefit, as so many of us have had, of hearing from the residents of Rockville over the past 6 months. We know Rockville residents want value for their money. They want a government that listens and responds. We need a team, we need a person, we need a vision of responsive leadership. And Beryl brings that to us, and she asks for your vote on November 5th.
Thank you, Ed Feinberg, speaking for his wife, Beryl Feinberg, who couldn't be here tonight because she's been sick. So before we wrap up and show our great appreciation for these talented candidates and representative of a candidate, I want to thank the Channel 11 crew, the Rockville 11 crew. I also want to acknowledge that former delegate Paul Carlson has just arrived, and it's good to see you, Paul. Senator Jenny Forehand wanted to be here tonight, but she actually left early this morning for a conference, but she sends her best regards and good luck to the candidates. And also want to give a shout out to Rockville Living, Helen Triolo, who does a great job for the city, and to Max Van Balgoy, who also has a blog. And anything that we can do to keep dynamic debates and share information, I think, is really important. And so thanks to both of you for keeping people informed and providing that resource. So thank you. So let's please celebrate. We had a great conversation tonight. People, please take their seats. And I know that everybody's excited to talk to the council candidates because they did a great job, but we do want to get started again and give our candidates for mayor plenty of time to share their views. Very nice. My days as a substitute teacher while I was in the legislature is kind of working for me. People quieted down. I didn't need to do the clappy thing or anything. Okay, in just a minute we'll start the TV cameras again. If we can ask the candidates to either take a seat or step back in the back so we can give our utmost respect to our mayoral candidates. And I'll wait for the high sign. Okay. Welcome back to the first televised mayor and council debate. We have finished with the council candidates, and now we are here with our two candidates for mayor. Tonight's event has been sponsored by the Rockville Community Coalition, and we want to thank them. Want to welcome everybody who's here tonight, and thanks to everybody who's watching at home. This will also be available online through rockvillemd.gov, and we encourage you to be an informed voter by November 5th. We've got two candidates, so I don't need the luxurious cloth bag to just go back and forth. We will alternate who goes first. And for opening remarks, they will have 2 minutes, and we will reverse the order for close. So in alphabetical order, Councilmember, I will call you both Councilmember. Bridget Newton, could you please lead us off for 2 minutes, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here. I would also like to thank the RCC for hosting us and Cheryl Kagan for moderating this evening. However, I'd like to deviate for a second and say something about the government shutdown and its effect on many of our Rockville families. This is one of the worst examples of governing one could ever imagine, and we're hurting innocent people. I would like to give a shout out to those 19 members of Congress who are forgoing their salary during this embarrassment to our country, and I hope that the other 516 soon join them. Please remember your neighbors during this uncertain time, and let's all work together to remind them that neighbors take care of neighbors. Okay, the show. I have a sincere interest in Rockville's future, and I think that my vision, Together We Can Do Great Things, encompasses what I have been doing for the past 30 years. I'm a 32-year resident of Rockville, and I've lived in 3 different neighborhoods. I'm a 2-term member of the council, and I hold several elected positions within the Maryland Municipal League and act as a liaison to 7 Rockville boards and commissions. As you know, I'm a strong advocate of the APFO, and I've not wavered in my support of the need for necessary infrastructure to be in place before we bring in new development. I was very pleased to learn yesterday that my opponent has backed away from his position, and I hope that together we can craft solutions that stand us securely for generations to come. I want to tell you that I'm committed to ensuring that this campaign is focused on the issues facing Rockville. My opponent and I have agreed on many things that have come before the council, and there are some similarities in our platforms. We simply have different visions, and I happen to think that my vision and values are more closely aligned with those of the citizens of Rockville. We have to work together if we want real solutions, and I am the candidate who lives the vision, Together We Can Do Great Things. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bridget Newton. And now opening remarks from Councilmember Mark Pershela.
Good evening. My name is Mark Pershela, and I'm running for Mayor of Rockville. I wish to thank the Rockville Community Coalition for hosting tonight. This election is about the whole community. It's about you, our residents, about our businesses and nonprofits, our educational institutions, and our governments, all coming together to solve our problems. It's about making decisions based on facts, and it's about expressing a vision for Rockville and knowing what we want to do, and it's about preserving our quality of life, even in these difficult times. I know how to build coalitions. I know how to make a plan and execute it. I helped create the Rockville Summit that brought together all parts of our city to discuss our future. Speaking of our future, it is appropriate that we're holding this first forum just after the federal government closed. This underscores the uncertainty that we face. The federal government is going to shrink. We need to diversify our economy and our tax base. Growth and how to handle growth is a huge challenge. We need to try new approaches. As mayor, I will continue to expand our tax base by bringing in high-quality companies. I will continue to moderate spending to keep us on a sustainable fiscal path. I will re-examine where Rockville allows its growth. We should focus our growth either where we have or can have frequent mass transit. I will build the collaborations necessary to convince our county and state governments to fully fund our school and transit construction. I was College Garden Civic Association president for 4 years. I was 1 year chair of the Town Center Action Team before coming on the council. As a council member, I have been very strong for you on your behalf, especially on budget issues. I look forward to answering your questions tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Mark Pershela. So we have a lot of questions up here, and we're definitely not going to get to them all. But again, I want to thank everybody who submitted a question and to the RCC Steering Committee for doing this. I'd like to start, and as I did last time, I kind of mush questions together to make sure that we can get to as many as possible. And this one is really about dealing with city staff. People are concerned about the lawsuits regarding employee issues, and how can we make Rockville City Hall a better workplace and avoid similar situations like that in the future. And combined with that, what do you think is the appropriate role for the mayor to be dealing with city staff? Mark, we'll deal with you and then go to Bridget.
We have 2 minutes?
1 minute.
1 minute, okay. First of all, I think it is a great place for city staff to work. I don't think there are huge problems for the vast majority of our city staff. We do need to certainly revise our personnel manual. That's far along in the process. We need to get our new human resources director hired. A lot of slop crept into the system over the past 2 or 3 decades, and that certainly needs to be fixed. The role of the mayor is a policymaker. The mayor is not the personnel supervisor of these people. The mayor and the council need to focus on policy and making sure our personnel policies are correct. It is a city manager who is responsible for making sure that the city staff are handled correctly and fairly and consistently. And it's the city manager that the mayor and council will then look to do that. So I think that the feedback I get from city staff is the vast majority like working here. They think it's a great place to work. We have people who have been there for years, and we have new people who will be there for years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Bridget.
Thank you. I agree. Rockville is a wonderful place to work, and I think we can do a little bit more in boosting the morale of our employees. Giving them a 2% increase, cost of living increase this year, I think went a long way in helping make up some of the ground that they were lacking in during our recession. I think that the job of the mayor and council is to work hand in hand with the city manager as we lead the city. And to that end, I look forward to really good relationships with Barb Matthews, our city manager, and the new HR director who's coming on board next week. I think we have some ground to make up when it comes to our personnel policies. As my opponent said, we have a meeting coming up soon where we will be reviewing the suggestions that are coming before us. And I think the Saul Ewing report gave us a lot of ideas that we need to follow through on. The most important thing I think we need to do as a city is to boost the morale and to be respectful of everyone, whether it's staff, our fellow council members, our citizens, whomever comes before us. I think we need to work together.
Thank you, Bridget. The next question, you'll lead off, and then your opponent. What is your vision as to what the city should look like 10 years from now? And you can speak to any aspect of it, and you'll have 2 minutes. So, Bridget Newton.
Thank you. Well, I'm all about vision. I love to think about things and plan for things. One of the things that I'd like to see in Rockville is a trolley instead of the BRT. We've talked about this, and the BRT is far, far down the line. A trolley would be something we could put in place soon on the Pike, and we could connect and get people out of their cars and get people moving and going places. I'd like to see Rockville maintain its quality of life. I'd like to see us continue to protect our neighborhoods and make them stronger, because that's where the heart of Rockville is, in our neighborhoods. I would like to see development be responsible development, something that's balanced. As been said before, we need elementary school number 5 built. and we need to look at modernizing Julius West, renovating it, and also Twin Brook Elementary. That school is in very, very dire need of improvements. In future dreams for Rockville, I would love to keep what is great and build on that. I think we have a wonderful city, and I like it very much. I think there's some things that we can do to help improve us, so I'd like to work on that.
I apologize,
That's okay.
Bridget. So I was worried you got dried up, and so I was wondering why
we
there
have
weren't
water.
water bottles
Yeah, we
out
do.
there, so I was trying to get you water bottles.
We're good.
I was just informed you have them. Sorry about that. Okay. Mark, for Shayla, please.
Right. I really and truly think that we have a big challenge coming up, and that is we will have to change the very economic basis of this city. You are so dependent on the federal government. My big focus has been to transition us to a more private-based economy, high-quality jobs with great companies. That will be the number one thing. We will have growth, and how we handle growth will determine a lot of quality of life issues. If growth is handled properly, that is putting growth where you have transit and putting growth where you can have bikeable and walkable and shoppable areas, that will actually be a great city to live in. And I think that is going to be another big challenge we have. Our two quality of life issues that most commonly come up to bite us are school capacity and transit. We have such a great quality of life otherwise. We have great educational institutes, wonderful school system, private school choices if you want to do that, wonderful cultural opportunities, wonderful sports venues and opportunities. And you need a certain level of prosperity and a certain population to sustain that. I think a lot of people kind of lose that. So I really want to have an incredibly prosperous city, one that handles its growth a lot better than it does now. I think you do that by focusing your development where it can do some good. And I really love the transit aspect of the Rockville Pike plan. I think that really is the way we should go with growth, because it would allow rapid transit, whether it's a trolley or bus. It would allow bikes. It would certainly give the 3 through lanes on each side a clearer path. It would allow the buses to pull over when they stop, and it would have full access roads. And I think that's a great vision for transit, and I think that's how we handle our growth and keep our city strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. The next question, Mark, you'll lead, and then Bridget. We want to talk about neighborhood preservation, and specifically how you balance hometown quality that we're so proud of here in Rockville with growth and development so that we can continue to flourish as a city. Mark first, please.
Yes, thank you. You know, we have already taken some very strong measures to protect our neighborhoods, and this most recently came in the 2009 zoning ordinance revision. The zoning of the neighborhoods is, first of all, very important. However, the 2009 zoning ordinance, number one, it certainly concentrated on mixed use, and I'm fully in support of that, but it allowed mixed use development anywhere in the city. Every commercial and industrial tract in the previous zoning ordinance was made into mixed use, and additionally, it didn't say what percent of each use there had to be, or at least a target. So it is, for example, possible for a plaza next to a neighborhood to become 100% residential or 100% commercial. And I think, and I said that I would like to focus growth in areas where we can have or do have mass transit. So one of the things I would look to preserve the neighborhoods is look at where we allow growth and to actually look at these areas where we've given mixed use and how we've given it, and cut some of that back to focus where we allow growth. If you put growth where you have the transit, where the transit can be taken care of, that protects the neighborhoods. I used to live in Arlington County, and they handle growth very well. They have mass transit corridors, 2 blocks away, single-family homes, and that works. Those homes are very attractive. They're very much in demand. There are examples around the country for preserving our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mark. Bridget?
Could you repeat the question?
Oh, golly. It was a mushy question. It was a merge. Neighborhood
was about
preservation
neighborhood, yeah.
and then balancing growth and development while preserving neighborhoods.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
As I've said earlier, our neighborhoods are our greatest asset, and I think though we did redo the zoning ordinance in 2009, we're going to need to make some tweaks to that. We are discovering that in our older neighborhoods, there isn't enough protection in our plans for them, and one size isn't going to fit all. We've learned that recently in discussing this with our citizens, but I do think that we're going to have to make some changes to the plan, and I think it's possible to protect our older neighborhoods while we allow infill development and renovations of homes to a way that the community supports. I also think that how we handle coming growth will be instrumental in what happens to our current neighborhoods. Rockville is growing. We need to grow in good ways, and just growing smart isn't always the way to do it. Our Pike is going to be a major road of transit, but it can't be the only one. We've got to find other ways that circumvent traffic going through our neighborhoods. A long time ago, I served on the WETMAG, West End Traffic Management group, and they discussed stopping traffic from cutting through neighborhoods. And I think that's one way to preserve what we have and keep them walkable, keep them safe. Other ways, I think historic preservation is huge. We've got to balance our desires to preserve what we have with change that's coming, and adverse historic designation is a big issue that's coming up. So I think there are many things that we can do as a city.
Thank you, Bridget. So when I said it was a mushy question, I meant that I mushed two questions together, not at all that it was a wishy-washy question, and thank you to both of you for your answers. I am going to mush two again, though. A lot of people talk about civility. A lot of people talk about greater respect among mayor and council and among the mayor and council and staff. Is there anything that you believe that you can tell us about your skills, any ideas that you have as to how to make the mayor and council a more deliberative and civil body? And related to that, you can tie in any of the experiences or personal qualities that you have that would make you an excellent mayor and leader in that. So, Bridget, you go first.
All right. I think that we need to remember to respect each other the way we would like to be respected. And I think if we start with that, then we go a long way in building a relationship between the council and between our community and staff. Every year, the new council takes a retreat. They go away for half a day or a day and work together on goals and visions. And I think it would be important for us to spend a little time getting to know each other when we do that, and really building a foundation to work together. Not everybody's going to have the same opinion, and not everybody's going to have the same goals, but if we respect each other for their goals, we're going to come up with a better solution in the end. I see this all the time in various groups that I've been on. My leadership in MML has helped me very much in learning how to lead, in learning how to draw people together, in bringing out the best. And I'm a firm believer that if you put all the ideas around the table together, you will come up with the best solution to an issue. I have used my background as a parent, as a volunteer, as president of the PTA, president of the West End, as building blocks to get me to the position on the council where I think we have, in many cases, we have worked together well. And it's just a matter of how you comport yourself as an individual, I think, that carries forward. So,
thank you, Bridget. Mark?
Right. I got to say that we've both been 2 terms on the council. This term, as far as our relationships on the dais between us, I think has been better than our first term. Not ideal, but it has improved. However, I do think there is a problem, quite honestly, between how some of the elected treat city staff. I think it's abhorrent, and we're talking about making city staff look bad. We're talking about the tone of voice and that kind of thing, and that just doesn't belong in our city at all. Now, I will say that as mayor, there's many ways the mayor can instill a more civil environment, and a lot of it just goes to the way the meeting is conducted. I would certainly conduct the meetings much more formally and much more stiffly, if you want to say it that way, in terms of how people are addressed. I don't like it when people are addressed by first name, either between the elected or from the elected to the city staff. I think it helps that if a city staff member is struggling, you help the city staff member out. If the city staff member is not well prepared for the meeting and you see that ahead of time, you call up the city staff member and say, you know, there's a deficiency in what you've given us. Can you please correct it before the meeting? I think all that kind of stuff works. There is a problem, has been a problem with disagreeing. That some people, when you disagree with them, take it personally, and others will see it as a policy disagreement. So I think that has to be reinforced. I have worked on many national and international bodies where I've had to do very complex things with people I've never met before, and we've had no charrettes or anything else, you know, to get to know each other. But we have been able to do some very difficult things. And it all comes down to respect for the individual, that you're all working for the good of the cause. And, you know, if you're not going to get along, you're not going to get along no matter what you do in these retreats. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Pershela, being more formal now, as he suggested. I always go back and forth, so sorry about that. I think we shouldn't have a mayoral debate without a question about town center, and I'm going to ask a different version than we had for the council candidates, and I wonder if each of you could speak to something or things that you think are going really well with town center so far, and something or things that you would like to consider changing or fixing, modifying. And Councilmember Newton, you would be next. You would lead us off.
Okay. I was one of the founding members of the Town Center Action Team, and that group worked very, very hard to come up with a vision for the town center. I think we have succeeded in many ways. There are a lot of people that come to our town center. We have a good mix of uses, a beautiful library, and I like the change that they made to the green space. Challenges going forward are connecting our current town center to Phase 2. Phase 2 is being built kind of piecemeal, and I think that could cause problems for us going into the future. You need the synergy between the two developments to bring people back and forth, to cause them to come from one to the other, and to make use of the amenities and the shopping and restaurants that we hope will be there. I would like to see a little bit more foresight and planning, and I tried this term to get the council to have a vision and to work together to come up with something that we could use for Phase 2 to complement Phase 1. One of the things I was successful in was getting the approving authority for Phase 2 back to the mayor and council, so that we have some say, and you, therefore, through us, have some say in what's going to happen. And I look forward to more dialogue about that, and hopefully we can make some changes coming down the pike that, no pun intended, but coming that will encourage good development and a more cohesive plan and result for us.
Thank you, Councilmember Newton. Councilmember Pershela.
Yes, town center actually is on its way up. I think it's doing great. It is the town square development that came on several years ago is a hugely successful gathering place. However, retail is struggling. It always has struggled, and I think that is a weakness in town center. I was one of the 3 people who voted to bring Choice Hotels International to our town center. Once you have something like the town square, you have to build around it. It was always meant to be, you know, catalyst for other kinds of development. Choice Hotels International coming in to town center has been a huge boost for that development. It has spurred the growth of another building across from Regal, and that is what it needs. You need that critical mass for town center to succeed. You know, I don't think that mayor and council should get heavily involved in the so-called Phase 2. The Phase 1, the town square, was always meant to be a catalyst. We have a zoning ordinance that tells what can go there. We have a master plan that tells what can go there, and as long as they're following that, I'm happy, because it's all private development. We do need to complete Maryland Avenue Extended and Dawson Avenue across to 355. That is the city contribution. I do want to say that the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance is one of the big things that has gotten in the way of Phase 2 being what some people would like it to be. It can be a small office building, it can be senior living, but you know, that's not the vision that a lot of people had. And the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance got in the way of that. So that was one reason that Hall and Moore brought forward some revisions to the APFO, APFS recently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Pershela. We need to have a budget question here, and I'd like to have each of our candidates for mayor speak to what you think is the relative health of the Rockville budget and what changes you would envision wanting to provoke a dialogue about. And again, sort of that can be cutting services or increasing fees or other taxes or something. Mark Pershela first and then Bridget Newton.
Right. Well, we have survived the Great Recession so far, but if the ideologues in Washington don't get their act together, we will have another one. But I will say that so far our budget is in great shape. We still have a AAA bond rating. That's a huge success for a city our size. However, our 5-year forecasts show that we're balancing our budget for the next 5 years only by drawing on our reserve. Right now we have well over our 15% reserve requirement, but the 5-year forecast shows us that at the end of those 5 years we'll be right at 15%, and I don't like that one bit. The biggest thing that will impact our budgets going forward is coming forth with a fair compensation system for our city staff. We had to cut back their salaries during the Great Recession. But what is not commonly known is that our benefit costs for our staff exploded, especially the retirement fund. We probably spent more on salaries and benefits combined over the past 3 or 4 years than we were planning before the recession hit. Just based on the benefits, I think they went up by 40-some% over that recession. So that's the big thing. Get that compensation and benefits correct. I think we need to ask city staff to contribute more to their retirement. So far, we went from like $1.7 million contributing to their retirement to $4.2 million contributing to their retirement. And I think we can and should ask the city staff to contribute more towards their own retirement. They should share in that a little bit. It's also sharing in their future. Our long-term capital improvements program is very worrisome. Right now we're handling it, but we have bridges over 270, we have numerous city buildings, we have a lot of infrastructure that has to be fixed in the next 10, 20, 30 years. And we actually need a very long-range capital investment program plan to make sure that when the bridge over 270...
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay. Bridget Newton.
We received an email from the city manager the other day letting us know that our 213 assessments increased by about 3%. That's an additional $1.2 million that we weren't anticipating. We're going to use about $700 and some thousand of that to purchase radios for our police so that they are able to communicate during an emergency situation with the other municipalities and the other jurisdictions, I should say, around us. The rest of that money will go towards the reserves. We do need to talk about, in the city, a long-range plan for our CIP. We have about 17 projects currently with $22 million unfunded in our CIP. That is as scary as Mark is saying. That's scary when it comes to our bridges and whatnot. Long-range planning is something we've got to work on. I also think that we need to look for other ways to fund our budget. And not just rest on the fees and taxes that we get from our citizens. I've worked with the Maryland Municipal League, and we have recently, in the last 2 years, brought in over $2 million in highway user revenue restoration of the funds that had been taken from us by the state when they needed to balance their own budget. Right now we're working on the restoration of our tax duplication monies and potentially more police aid. The police aid could amount to about $4 million for the city. Currently we respond to about 73% of the calls for service. Rockville City Police do. And if we can up that amount to first responder status, we could get even more money. So those are ways that I think we can help to support our budget. I would like to look at our cost allocation program. The way we're funding our city with the overhead is a real burden on our citizens. And currently, when we're asking a 25% increase one year and a 26% the next year on our on our water and sewer fees, that is unsustainable. And we hear always from people about how that is very much hurting them. So I think there are things we can do.
Thank you. So I need to ask our timekeeper whether it would be completely impossible to ask. I want to squeeze 2 more questions in, but we're a little tight. So can you reprogram for 1.5 minutes rather than 2? I'm going to do 2 1.5-minute questions for you all. Bridget, you'll go first. I want to know, both of you all have been meeting a lot of people, talking about issues, and obviously you both served on the council for 4 years. Tell us, if you would, something that from your door knocking, something from this campaign that you have learned that you didn't know before, and how it's caused you to think differently about any issue or any community or anything. And Bridget, if you can go first.
Well, I'm not sure what I've learned differently, but I know something that has been very much on the hearts of people is our code enforcement. And I think that is something that we need to step up in the city. Maybe we need more resources out on the streets, but in some of the older neighborhoods, there's a lot of concern about properties that are not being maintained, or situations that are happening that are affecting the quality of life, the income, no, I'm sorry, not the income, but the, what is it called, the appraisal value of homes nearby. So I think that's something, I'm not sure that that's new to me. I think I hear a lot about the money that people are spending on water and sewer. I hear a lot about concern about where we're going with the development and the APFO, and I think we're going to tackle the APFO very soon. And but that's probably the biggest thing that I've been hearing.
Thank you, Councilmember Newton, and now Councilmember Pershela, please.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm not a very good door knocker because you should give 90 seconds or 2 minutes to each resident who answers and move on to the next. But have often spent 10, 20, 30 minutes, even an hour with people talking to them about their issues. I have learned something new. And it took me a while over many residents to figure this out. But often the way that the city resident perceives city services is different than the way the city staff perceives city services. And I'll give a good example. There's in Twin Brook a street that has chronic cut-through traffic and people running stop signs and whatever. So the resident calls up the city staff, and sure enough, the police come out there and write lots of tickets. And that, but what's going on is that the city resident sees that, okay, that worked for a few days, but then the traffic's right back. Whereas you call the police chief up and he'll get out his statistics and say, oh yeah, we were there the other day and we wrote 200 tickets. So there's a real perception issue from the two sides. And I think that's why in my platform I've said that we need better measurements of city effectiveness. And so, for example, looking at the measures of effectiveness from the city residents' viewpoint. And I have a few ways in my platform that can happen. But I did find out that there are those perception differences, and that was a little surprising.
Thanks to both of you for that. The last question before closing statements, I think we heard from our council candidates. I think we're all very curious to know where our mayoral candidates stand on the charter questions that we're going to be voting on. And I wonder if you would each share your views on that. And Mark, you would go first on that, please. Mark Pershela.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Mayor Marcuccio for bringing this forward in the Charter Review Commission, and the Charter Review Commission itself for coming up with recommendations. If I had my choices, the Charter Review Commission would have given the reasons for their recommendations. As far as going to 4-year terms, I certainly support that. I think it's, so many reasons. The projects just take so long to go through all the steps. You have to work with other levels of government. You have a steep learning curve, especially for the new members. You get in there, you get through your first year, and you're already thinking about your next campaign. As far as going to 6-member council, I support that. When I was putting together Team Rockville, by the way, of which I'm very proud, we have a very diverse team. But I always felt that we could have a more diverse team, better represent the diversity of Rockville with 6 council candidates than a 4, because we're an incredibly diverse city. As far as going to presidential years, I'm very mixed about that. I'm leaning against it, and the reason is I have detected 3 reasons. I have detected this campaign already a very partisan approach by some people. I'm not talking about the candidates. I'm talking about voters themselves, how they evaluate candidates and how they're approaching the election. Secondly, I think there is a huge, if you have these presidential elections, a candidate would have to go to 15,000 households on the mailings instead of 5,000. That's a huge expense. And thirdly, I think the people who don't care about the elections, they're going to go down ballot and not know about these candidates. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget Newton.
Thank you. I have the strongest opinion on the change to presidential elections. I think that would be very disastrous for Rockville. It would cost a lot of money, as Mark says, to run in that and make yourself heard above the noise of the other elections that are going on. I think it would also challenge Rockville, and one of the things that we do well is we are nonpartisan. I think it would challenge that ability for us to stay nonpartisan. I would like to see us go to 4-year terms, but on a staggered year, on an odd year. I think that could work very well for us. The reason I am now in favor of 4-year terms, and I wasn't before I was elected, is because I was elected. And I've seen firsthand how difficult it can be to work with people in just 2 years, especially with divergent opinions. My first term, we had somebody begin running a month after the election, and my second term, we had someone announce shortly after the term started in January. So I think that going to 4-year terms might be of benefit for the city, and I know there's fear about getting stuck with someone for 4 years, but maybe the good would outweigh the bad. The one I'm least convinced that I have a good idea on is 4 to 6. I can see that we might have more representation with 6 council members. If you look at the number of people who ran this year, I think we would have everybody just get on the council, and I'm not sure that that's good government. So I'm still mixed on that one. The other thing I do worry about is I would never want to see Rockville go to districts, because I think it is the job of your council to support everyone in Rockville, to advocate for every neighborhood.
Thank you, Bridget.
That's good.
Sorry. I served on the Charter Review Commission for the county, and I can tell you, charter questions are hard. So thank you for sharing your views, and I think we're all going to be struggling through those issues before we vote. It's time for closing. Each of you has gone first 4 times and second 4 times. Bridget, you went first to open, and so Mark, you're going to go first to close. Councilmember Mark Pershela.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming tonight, and thanks again to RCC for hosting, and thanks to Cheryl Kagan to be our moderator. Tonight you have had a chance to see where Councilmember Newton and I stand on the issues. We have substantive, philosophical, and stylistic differences. You truly have a choice. When you make your choice for mayor, you have to look deep down into your heart to decide what kind of mayor you want. I will bring together all parts of the city. That is how we will solve our problems. I will look for new solutions for handling growth, and I will diversify our economy. I will clearly state our goals and make a plan for the next 2 years. I will bring a calm and fact-based approach to our initiatives and our decision-making. I will respect everyone before us. Everything I do will be to preserve our quality of life, even in difficult times and despite difficult times. Visit my website at votepershela.org. There you will see a full 12-page platform, and you will see another document about how I go about being mayor. Please vote for me to be your next mayor of Rockville, and I thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Mark Pershela. And to close, Councilmember Bridget Newton.
Thanks. I have to say, going to the dentist is less stressful. Thank you all for your patience tonight with my stammerings. I hope your observations of my conduct, my positions, and my efforts on behalf of Rockville over the past 4 years have convinced you that I am the best candidate for mayor. If elected, I will lead in the same respectful, inclusive, and collegial manner as I have conducted the people's business as your council member. I believe in discussion. I don't really like confrontation. I treat people with respect whether or not I agree with them, because that's the way I want to be treated. And I sincerely believe that I don't have all the answers. That's why I ask so many questions. If elected, I promise that together we will shepherd Rockville forward while preserving our quality of life and the reason we all live here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Bridget Newton. Thanks to both of you. I think both candidates did a great job, so thank you for that. I just have a couple other thank yous. Sorry, hold your applause. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I want to give a shout out to the always wonderful Rockville 11 crew. Thank you for being here. You guys always do a great job. Thank you to Bridget and Mike and Kim and Tony and Aaron and you guys and Chris, and yeah, so thank you very much. I want to thank Ken Sandin, our timer, for keeping us all focused and fair. I want to thank Alan Frankel, Peter Mork, and the rest of the Rockville Community Coalition for hosting this and pulling this all together. I want to suggest you can go to rockcom.org to learn more about Rockville Community Coalition and to see more information about the charter review questions and other information. So again, on the charter review, you can hear from both sides. The other thing I want to mention is that a week from tomorrow, on October 10th, the Twin Brook Citizens Association will be hosting the second of the 3 televised debates, and that's going to be at the Twin Brook Rec Center, and that'll be at 7:30. There will be a 7 o'clock meet and greet. So if you're watching at home and want the opportunity to come on out and submit a question and stuff, we encourage anyone here or anyone watching at home to please come out and join us on Thursday, October 10th, and I will change colors. I will be back again, as well as will all of these hardworking candidates. So now let's give a thanks to our mayoral candidates.
Let's give a thank you to the moderator par excellence, Cheryl Kagan. Before we break for cookies and drinks, I have a few thank yous to make of my own. I also want to thank Bridget and the crew from Rockville Channel 11 for all of their help. I want to thank the members of my Board of Governors of the Rockville Community Coalition, Jim Marinin, Jim Coyle, Ken Sander, Peter Mork, and somebody who couldn't be here tonight because Wednesday is one of the 2 days a week he actually has classes, my son Jonathan. I want to recognize Roald Schrock, who was our founding president, who is with us this evening, and I thank you for coming out. I want to thank the City of Rockville for allowing us to host this debate. When I sent out an email to all of the candidates about the rules and how we were going to run the debate, I indicated to them that, first of all, there were going to be no softball questions, and I don't think we had any. I indicated to them that there were going to be no questions that would be personality related, that we weren't going to stoop to that level, and I think that we haven't, and I appreciate the level in which this debate took place tonight. And I told them that we were going to have a fair, honest, open, and spirited debate among the candidates. And I think that all of us agree we certainly had that this evening. We have choices to make on November 5th, and I hope the Rockville Community Coalition, by hosting this debate this evening, has given you a lot to think about between now and November 5th. One thing that I have learned is that no matter which of our candidates win on November 5th, the citizens of Rockville are going to be governed by some incredibly wonderful, thoughtful, and concerned people. And I want to thank all of our candidates for appearing with us tonight, and good luck to you during the rest of your campaign. Good job. Thank you so much.